Welcome back, Troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. We've got another collection video, and these aren't necessarily new guitars on my channel, but I finally completed the Super Collection, as I'm going to call it. Now, why do I consider these guitars the Super Collection? Well, it's because of these two guys right here. They've been nicknamed the Super Custom. And in order for a guitar to belong to the Super family, it had to have been made in the 70s or 80s, and it has to have a mahogany core surrounded by flame maple with maple neck. But what Les Paul started that? That is the Les Paul. That's T-H-E, not V. These were guitars that were built from 1976 through 1979, and they were made in two finishes. Wine red, like this one, and natural. There were 59 of these natural ones and 18 of the wine reds. That makes for a total of 77 of these guitars. Now, these were essentially the fanciest Les Paul that has ever been made in the Norlin Era, and they have a two-piece maple top with a maple veneer on the sides as well as on the back with a highly flamed neck. However, the core of this guitar is still mahogany, and that's why I call these mahogany cored guitars. Now, the Les Paul is also special because it has all wooden appointments where you would normally find plastic, such as the knobs, the pick guard, the pickup rings themselves, the poker chip, and originally the switch tip would also be wooden, as you can see on this example. Their truss rod covers were also wooden. But these guitars were built basically to celebrate America's bicentennial. Others have argued that these guitars were supposed to be the official 20th anniversary model instead of just the customs that got the inlay. But towards the end of this run of guitars, they started running out of the wooden appointments. So some of these guitars will have brass parts instead of wood. These are special because they have an ebony rosewood ebony fretboard as well. It's kind of like a sandwich, as you can see, and it has multicolored binding. Once production was finished with these guitars, there was some leftover parts for these guitars, and they didn't really have enough to, build another one of these, or maybe they just wanted to stop at 77 for some reason. Then comes these guys. These are the Super Customs and Super Standard. Now, which one came first? The Super Standard did. Now, this is the only known Super Standard in existence that I'm aware of. It kind of showed up. The guy who had it didn't really know what it was, but due to all my research on these guitars, I knew exactly what this guitar was. This is quite simply just a leftovers model. It has an L5's headstock veneer. It has a 25/50th anniversary's neck, and it has the body of a V Les Paul. So that means it's mahogany core surrounded by flame maple on all sides. Furthermore, the pickups are also the same ones in a 25/50th anniversary, and this is the same type of factory switch they used on the Les Paul Artist model. Now, how do I know this one came first and not the Super Customs? Because the owner of number one, the very first Super Custom built, the serial number is slightly after the serial number of the Super Standard. Now, the very first Super Custom built also has the wooden binding like a V Les Paul. I was unable to obtain that particular Super Custom, but I do have one from each run. Here is an example from the initial 79-80 run where there were 31 of these models built. So once again, this is also a leftover parts guitar where they're just trying to make a fancy guitar out of the leftovers of a V Les Paul in like the 25/50th anniversary. So here we have a regular custom headstock emblem. You have a brass truss rod cover that says Les Paul Limited Edition, a brass nut as they were using, an ebony fretboard with Super 400 inlays, just like the 25/50th anniversary. Leftover T-tops and TP6 tailpieces. And again, the body is the same as a V Les Paul. It's mahogany core surrounded by flame maple on all sides. You also, once again, have a similar neck to a 25/50th anniversary or a few other guitars from this era. Now, I had previously sold this example, but the owner needed to sell it back here a year later. So the return of this guitar is kind of why I wanted to make this video, because now I have one of each color of the Les Paul. I have a run of each of the two Super Customs and the only Super Standard in existence that we're aware of. So that leaves us with this guitar. Due to Neil Schon picking up an original Super Custom and making it very popular in the music video Any Way You Want It, there was a Japan-only limited edition run of these guitars, so the specs on this one is a little bit different. You can see the headstocks are just about the same, and they have the same styled fret inlays. You can see the Super 400s go a little bit farther up the neck on this particular example. It's not always the case though. But these ones will have stock Tim Shaw PAFs, and there will be no cover on the bridge because that's how Neil Schon played his. Now this one's had a rough life. There's quite a few replaced parts. It originally would have had a Nashville styled bridge, but the point still stands that it's a mahogany core body surrounded by flame maple everywhere. Now this example doesn't have the best flame on the sides, but you can definitely still see it's there. These ones will have the Custom Shop Edition decal and a limited edition serial number. There's supposed to be around 100 of these ones made. This one potentially has a headstock repair, I'm not really sure. The guy I bought it from swears it was just to cover up some tuner holes from the original tuners and some other tuners that have been on it, but I'm not so sure. The biggest difference between the original Super Custom and the second run is that these have a one-piece maple neck instead of the 5-piece. Here you can see what I'm talking about. You don't have these lines running through it on this second example. Another difference is this one has a 2-piece flame maple back, whereas this one appears to be a 1-piece. I'm not sure if it's like that on all of them though. But being surrounded by maple, they actually had to cap off the bottom parts and by the cutaway because they couldn't bend the maple veneer all that way. So on a V Les Paul, you kind of have a V shape going on. You can see that here on the natural one as well. Whereas on the Super Custom, you have more of a straight line of binding. And the second run Super Custom, I believe there used to be a thing of binding there, but it looks like it might have fallen off. And the Super Standard also has a strip of binding. However, it's not as thick as the Super Custom, as you can see here. The cutaway cap is the next thing we'll look at. Here's the wine red the Les Paul. And here's the natural one. Definitely pay close attention here. There's a brown, red, and a golden strip of binding as well. And here's the one spot where the original run Super Custom has another the Les Paul attribute. You have a small strip of binding right here, and then you still have a rosewood cap on top of the mahogany core. The second run Super Custom just has a single piece of cream binding, as does this Super Standard. So as far as rare Norlin Era guitars, these are the cream of the crop as far as I'm concerned. They're definitely the most fancy Les Pauls of the era. They have a body construction that's unlike any other Les Paul. And honestly, Gibson only very rarely does these mahogany chord guitars even today. So having a vintage example of this type of body construction is really where it's at. I've definitely been blessed to have one of every single iteration of these guitars at the same time, and it's great to be able to document them together. And just for fun, let's look at them under blacklight here. You can see they're all glowing pretty extensively. Of course, that one had a Bigsby on it at one point in time. You can see that right there. But everything glows the way I would expect to see on these guitars. And here we'll take a quick look at the back side of them. Again, the second run Super Custom. It's had a tough life, whereas the rest of these guitars have been a little bit more of case queens. However, this one has definitely toured the world and been in many famous music videos. I do have separate videos of all these guitars with playing demos in them if you're interested in listening to how they sound. But that is it for this video. I hope you troglodytes enjoyed getting to see a complete super collection and learn a little bit more about them. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.